So I would like to welcome everybody to today's webinar focusing on tailoring SciNote through our professional services. Some of you might already know me, but for those who don't, my name is Kelly and I'm a customer success manager. With me today, I have my colleague Shama.
Hi guys, I'm happy to be here. I'm a customer success manager at SciNote as well.
And something you might notice is unfortunately our colleague Arun was unable to make it today. Although if you have any questions that you'd like to ask him directly, you can reach out to him at arun@scinote.net or reach out at premiumsupport@scinote.net, and we can make sure that those questions get directed to him. Now, before we start to dive into the details, I want to ensure that everyone feels comfortable and engaged and able to ask all of the questions or concerns that they might have. So if any questions arise during this time, please don't hesitate to write your questions in our chat or the Q&A, or you can even raise your hand and we can unmute you. So that way we can address the questions that you have. And without further ado, let's get started. There we go. So professional service overview. We've listened to your feedback and we're thrilled to share this year that we are now placing more of an emphasis on professional services. Our primary goal is to allow your team to customize SciNote to perfectly suit your requirements, ensuring seamless integrations into your day-to-day operations. Professional services is it's custom development. It's not just like a buzzword, as you probably are hearing a lot these days. It's more a promise that we're giving you that we're going to tailor things specifically to your needs. We're crafting solutions uniquely set up by your team. We recognize that no two labs are the same, or no two companies or workplace. No one operates alike. So why should your ELN or your notebook operate exactly the same? For example, your reports, your team roles, permissions, your task workflows, we know they're all distinct or they're all different. So we're here to help you make them different and make them align with your team. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over 3 examples to illustrate how we've created some solutions for some of our users already. So what we're going to start off with is custom reports. I like to ask, are you tired of manually laboring to create or change, edit, format your reports from your project? Instead of using SciNote templates for reports, we do have the option now that you can create your own template. So imagine having more of a seamless process where all you have to do is input your project details and the report is automatically generated in the format your stakeholders, your clients, anyone that you're sending that report to in the format they prefer. So let's check out an example of what we have here. Customizing your reports could include a project summary. Currently, right now, we only have the SciNote template. But like I said, it can include your project summaries. It can include objectives, conclusions, background information, even data visualizations, anything that your team might need for your report. Gone are the days manually exporting your report, whether it was a PDF or a Word, to make those edits further. Because I'm going on calls and I'm hearing that people say that they export it, they're deleting things, they're changing things, they're adding things. Take that manual labor off of you and put it on SciNote. Consider your typical workflow. You receive items from clients. Maybe you need to create a detailed report on that task completed for each one of those items. Instead of spending that time, like I said, formatting it, have SciNote do it for you. So here I chose template B. Here we could have where it doesn't not only showcases the task completed on that item, but down below we could have a template where you could choose to include specific item information. Maybe it's a summary of your findings. Maybe it's whether the item passed or failed inspection. It could be anything regarding that item that the client needs to know. Then you can save that report seamlessly back to that inventory item. Or you can just keep it with your records, so that way you have ease of access and it's all located in that one area for review, to change as maybe the project is changing. You're not going to be saving it elsewhere on your desktop, and then you're like, where did I save that? Where can I find that? It's all in one spot. If you aren't sure if something that you are currently doing with your report is something that we can do for you in our custom reports, ask us, because we'd be happy to help. And if we are unsure exactly if it is, I'll say something we can specifically do, and we'll always take that information and reach out to our technical team and get back to you. Because I know that there are, I'll say, a plethora or an endless types of ways that people are creating their reports, depending on where you're sending it to. So any questions on custom reports before I change the direction to talk about status flow? I know I went over that a little bit fast, but just as a reminder, you can add your questions to the chat. You can to our Q&A or raise your hand, or you can even email us after the webinar as well. And we'd be happy to help regarding those, because just like custom development, everything is, we'll say, custom and specific. So not one of these options that we talk about today or one of these solutions we talk about might fit your team, because that was unique to this specific team. And we all know that you are all different. All right, so if there are no questions, let's talk about custom status flow. Okay. So just like our reports, we understand that your team might not always align perfectly with our default workflow. Perhaps you want to transition directly from in progress to in review, or you want to insert an additional step in between, or you want to completely overhaul the flow and the naming conventions. And that's good news for you guys, is because it is possible, and we can kind of check it out a little bit more in some detail here. So I'm inside my SciNote, and currently with our workflow, we have that it goes from in progress to completed, or from not started, from progress to completed for our essential users. It also, for our validated and platinum, goes from not started to in progress, completed to in review, and that's where that task is locked. You have signature requests, you have your inventory items get a snapshot, and then you move it to done at the end. If your workflow deviates from this progression, or maybe you're struggling to make this progression fit with your team, you've used different naming, you say your entire company career, or you've even used a different, I'll say, flow since you've started. Our professional services can help tailor that to your current flow. We can help design a task flow with the new stages that you have and responsibilities at each step. So depending on what the task might do or what you're allowed to do at that task based on that step, tailored precisely to your needs. So let's look at a more specific example here. In this workflow, I have to be commenced, project flow, or project work field. Ooh, I'm making up my own words there. Oh, field work in progress, field work complete, data in review, data check complete, and complete. Now, all of these steps have different, I'll say, tasks, have different types of things you can do at that time. When it hits from data in review, that is when it requires signatures from, let's say, team owners. When we are fieldwork complete, that's going to require, it's going to lock the task so that way people can't make, or users can't make it, members can't make any more changes. Once we hit the data check complete, that's where the team owners might be able to sign off. And then once we hit complete, that's when it locks not only the task, but then it also will create a snapshot of those items. So it's a little bit different than what your current workflow is. It's having people sign at different times. It's locking the task at different times. We could even, like I said, automate that so that way when you move from fieldwork complete to data in review, it creates automatic signature requests inside SciNote. So that way anybody assigned to that task with a certain permission automatically gets that signature request, and you don't have to do it manually. And as I mentioned before, I mean, you can even choose when you prefer to have your snapshots be generated. It doesn't have to always be generated at the in review stage. Maybe you want to wait till the end. Maybe you don't want your task to be locked yet because you want to make changes until you move it to done. All of these can be feasible based off of what you're looking for and what your team needs. The flexibility, honestly, is up to you to define. That's just where we come into play, and we can help that become a reality. Now, I like to say any questions regarding workflows. I know we have a question regarding reports, so we can kind of cover workflow questions and reports at the same time. So what is our first question that we have here, Shama?
So Tamara wants to know if it's possible to manually input the date completed. So they have projects that they've performed in the past before they were using SciNote, but they'd like to enter the actual completed date after the fact. So I don't see why we can't have a field with completed date
In the reports?
in the reports, right?
Yeah, I don't see that being something that we couldn't do. Yeah. Especially, let's go back here to, I'm going to go back a few slides here. When we choose template B, we might have an option here where it was the date completed for task or date completed for the project, and you could insert that date. So that way, when you create that report, maybe the page in the front talks about all the completed dates of the project and the tasks within.
And Kelly, as you said earlier, you can include like things like project summaries, objectives, conclusions, background information, data visualizations, and other specific things. So if you had a project that was started before using SciNote, then that could be included in background information as well.
Yeah.
What about the project date? Not report, but the project date.
So you maybe like the date in which all of the tasks are completed. If that yes. So like for instance, if when we're on our task here, let me pull up, I can't do that right now, just kidding. So when you're on your task and then when you move it to in review, it'll give that date completed timestamp. If you could edit that. That's something, Shama, I don't know if you know, but I would say I would take that question back to our technical team to talk with them. Just because
I know you can change the due date of different tasks, you know, and you can set it to a date in the past, but I don't know about at the project level.
Yeah. And so that's something I would, especially depending on what your plan is, if you are the essential or validated, it's something I would like to kind of bring back with our technical team, because if you are following a certain compliance and then we're changing the dates of projects, it might make you out of compliant there or not following. And we don't want that to happen. So that's definitely, I'll say, more of a little trickier area to kind of navigate, but I'm not saying it's off the table. We'll talk with our technical team, and what we can do is get back to you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Please email us with the specifications of your use case.
And you can email us at premiumsupport@SciNote.net. You can even, if you would like to email your CSM specifically, and we can get that covered. And let me move forward a little bit back to where we were at. So any other questions regarding custom reports or custom workflows? And I just want to emphasize too, that the two examples I've talked about so far and the last example I'm going to go over, these are just one example. It all can depend on like what it's going to look like for your team based off of your team's needs. So don't just think this is the only option, it's the end all be all. I also like to say the sky is the limit. I don't know if our developers would be like me to just say anything and everything, but essentially anything that you guys are doing right now, we can work with our developers and work with our technical team to make that a reality. All right. So if you have questions as we continue, like I said, drop it in that chat or QA, raise your hand and we can go over it. But if not, we're going to transition now into custom roles. So currently the roles in our teams are owner, user, and viewer. And then we also have for projects, we have the owner, user, technician, and viewer. If you're not sure exactly what these permissions can do, I recommend checking out our article on how to set up user roles inside SciNote. At the bottom in section 4, there's a file containing details that overview each role, and it goes into extreme detail on their permissions. If you want as well, we can drop this link in the chat, so that way you can kind of check that out at your own convenience as well, as I just dropped it there. Now, if you're going through that and you're finding that it's not following what your team needs, you don't have traditional roles, you have more unique roles for your members, or you have unique naming systems for not only your team, but maybe your project. What we can do is create these roles for you. So let's start by adding a new member to this project here. I'm going to grant new access, and we're going to click on my colleague, my technical colleague, Yoja. And what we can do here is we can see all of these roles. As you can see, we have some traditional roles like owner, user, viewer, technician, but we do have some more specific or unique ones. We have supervisor and viewer signer. Not only are these new roles, but these roles also have different permissions that go along with it. The supervisor is kind of similar to our owner, where they can't edit, but they can't edit the project's name, they can't manage the comments, and they also can't delete steps or results on that task. But all the other permissions that an owner can do, they can. Or we have the viewer signer, which we do hear very often. And that is a role where somebody can simply, similar to a viewer, they can only view the experiments, view the tasks. But when they have permission to, or when they have the request, they can sign off on that task. So everything like a viewer with the addition of signing off. The possibilities can kind of go further than this. And it kind of, like I said, depends on what your team is looking for. We can even take it a little bit further. So we've talked about some roles, some options there. We've talked about the workflow, but you could also have your custom workflows and your custom roles work together or work hand in hand. So going back from to, let's say, my previous workflow, when the task reached complete lock status, let's go in here to our complete lock status. You could have users who have the role supervisor on that project containing the task. They could receive e-signatures. Or let's say maybe when the task reaches data check complete, you could have a role that might be for PI, and that role could review this and have signature requests before processing forward. Having those workflows based off of like your specific needs and what they're doing, and then having those custom roles can take things even, I'll say, elevate it one step even higher. Now, any questions regarding custom roles, or even like combining custom roles? Maybe you want to have a role that, I'll say even a role that can only create reports, or you could have a role that is specific to your inventories. Maybe we want to combine all three: custom reports, custom roles, and custom workflows. The options there. So regarding, I'll say, our professional development, I'll say, what questions do you have? As a reminder, you can use the chat. You can use our Q&A box, raise your hand, or reach out to us specifically at premiumsupport@SciNote.net.